Good morning. Question for today for my story is, what fears have I had and how did I overcome them? Well, I've had a number of fears throughout my life, certainly of different scales, small things to large things. We can start, or I'll start with some of the bigger stuff maybe, and then maybe I'll work myself up to the bigger stuff. One thing, this is pretty common how I go through all of the fears that I've had throughout my life, is the common thread between everything is addressing it head on. Because I think that fear starts, no matter what, with uncertainty, right? That's really what fear is at the base level, is we're uncertain of if we do a certain thing, what the potential outcome may be. And that's terrifying to us because, at the base level, we're animals, right? So if we don't know if something is going to happen, that could affect our survival at a very, very base, deep level. Like, we could die, even though for the most part, in American society, it makes it, or at least in our part of the world, it makes it very challenging to die if you don't, don't start your own business or start school or whatever the case is. The chances of dying are very minimal. And even when they're not, you also have to weigh that factor. Like, if I don't overcome this fear, what is it going to do to me internally, right? A lot of people, they don't think about that, which in my personal opinion is worse off in the long run, is not doing something based solely out of fear. So anyways, kind of coming back to that, my mentality and my approach to anything that I'm fearful of, especially if it's something that I want to do, that is meaningful to me, I approach it straight on, just head on. I learn as much as I can about it, if possible. If not, I just jump in. I'd say it's a really good characteristic, but also a fault to a certain degree to my own maybe mentality in some cases, is I just jump in. Like, let's go. Whatever happens, happens. And it's definitely, that's backfired on me. Probably countless times, but it's also worked out really well for me many of times as well. I couldn't put a number on it, but I am glad I've taken this approach. A lot of times it's given me significant heartache taking this approach, no doubt about it. But I can start to talk about, the specific events or fears that I've had over my life that I've overcome with this mentality. So, I was really scared. Well, some of these, I didn't have a choice. I had to face the fear. Like, when I was in the military and I had to deploy overseas, I was scared. That's pretty scary to go to a different country, especially a hostile zone where there's actually combat happening. That's scary. It really was. And you were super young. I think you were 3 years old at the time, and there was a lot of fear that was going through my brain at that point in time. What if something happens to me? Is Saber going to be okay? Is she going to go? Her mom, is she going to have to live with her? There was tons and tons, and I can't even begin to count the number of fears that I had going in. And because I'm in the military, I didn't have a choice. So I was forced. That was kind of my first time where I was really forced to do something that I was terrified of. I was very scared of just not coming back and not being able to raise you. And, there's a lot. And so I faced it head on, and, like when I got over there, it actually wasn't that bad. Like, we were on the base, like I definitely had it. I'm not gonna say that I had it horrible, because I didn't. We were on the base. There was definitely some aspects that were really terrifying. Okay, so maybe I should step back a bit. So the combatants in that country, they really despised the US, and they would shoot mortars at the base, which are basically these bombs. So they would shoot them at the base, and they would sometimes land in the middle of the field outside of the base. Other times they would land in the middle of where everyone was sleeping, and people would die. So there's this kind of constant fear that I had while I was over there, literally of dying, just of dying every single day. Mostly like when I'd go to sleep. That's where it would kind of get me the most, is I'd lay down and I'd think, is this the last time that I go to sleep? Was this the last phone call that I had with my mom and my daughter? Because I'd call you guys as much as I could. Those were thoughts that would run through my head like every night. And after a moment, or not even a moment, but after some time, like that fear, I think addressing it head on like that, after a while, that fear kind of goes away. And you get to a level of acceptance of your fate, which is really, it's really a good feeling if you hold it right. Like, okay, this is where I am right now. I'm going to accept it, but I'm not going to let it overcome me. And, after about a month of kind of taking, a month of going through this fear-based mentality in my head, I kind of came to that, I guess, acceptance. And it really made like the rest of my deployment there not a bad situation at all. Like, I actually started having fun. I enjoyed kind of the weird day-to-day stuff that we would do. I enjoyed working with the people that were there and cracking jokes and calling you guys. And I think it had, or I know it had, a very significant positive effect on my mentality. So that was deploying. That was kind of my first, like, I don't have a choice. Here you go. What do you do in this particular situation? And so I think that initial kind of situation that I was pushed into, it kind of helped, I'd say, form my approach. Just like doing it, like, let's go. This is a fear. This is something that you have to do. And then, like, also knowing that I can come out on the other end in what is potentially a life-threatening situation. And not only can I be okay, I can be a better person because of it. So that was just really, really great initial reinforcement of the approach to fear for me. And so, kind of moving on later in my life, there was that. Another fear that I had was, definitely not at that type of scale where my life was in danger, but maybe in a sense, like my business or my career life, so to speak, was in danger. So, I had gotten out of the military, was going to school, or I'm sorry, let me back up. Wasn't going to school. I had gotten out of the military. I was working with Uncle Kevin, learning how to build houses. That was something that I always, or not always, it was something I knew that I kind of had to do if I wanted to design buildings and stuff later on. And so I kind of took to it. I don't even want to say begrudgingly, but kind of, I got to learn this. let's go, you know. It wasn't a fear of mine. It was just, it felt like it was a necessary task. And so I went through it. And then after, you know, a year, 2 years, I actually started to really like it. You know, working with Uncle Kevin, cracking jokes, being outside all day, bullshitting, you know, like there's a lot of really great things. And I really enjoyed, I was really actually enjoying what I was doing. You know, Kevin and I worked with a lot of my friends and other people. You know, I had met some other contractors that I became good friends with. You know, like I was like really in a good place. You know, you were growing up, I was able to support you. Many good things. But, you know, so I had been doing that about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years at that point. And internally, you know, there is still this calling to me, like, Casey, are you going to go, is this going to be your life? Like, are you going to just continue being a construction contractor, or are you going to do what you set out to do initially? Are you going to pursue architecture and design? Is this something that's still important to you? You know, so I really kind of had a deep question for myself in that respect. And ultimately I said yes, but I was terrified because, you know, I was making really good money at that point. You know, the time that I did go to college right out of high school for a term, it just wasn't well. You know, I didn't do very good. My mind wasn't there. So I was nervous about starting school again. I don't even want to say nervous. I was definitely fearful, because it's basically like completely changing my reality again, you know. And I think I was 27 or something at that point, somewhere in there, 28. And I was learning a lot. I was having fun. But this deeper calling, you know, kind of pushed me. And it almost, like, I almost felt, again, like similar to the military, like I had to do it. Like, you know, no one else was pushing me, but I felt this pull, this urge that I had to do it. And so instead of, you know, not letting myself go through that, which maybe some people do, you know, maybe not giving in to that deeper calling or urge, I just jumped into it. Okay, let's go. I gotta do it. And I mean, when I did that, it was, you know, it took some time. I'm not going to say that any of this happened overnight, because it certainly didn't. You know, I started out just taking a few classes, going part-time, but then there came kind of like, there always comes a point in your life where you realize how much your energy is dispersed, and you need to really prioritize and focus on what's important to you. And it came to that moment, you know, I was taking a bunch of classes, overworking, you know, not spending enough time, you know, on you, and like just all over the place. And then it was like, okay, I guess I'm done with construction, because I had to start going to full time when I transferred over to the U of O. And that was scary. That was hard, and it kind of sucked, because, you know, I was also like, I didn't want to hurt the relationship with my brother and all the contractors that I had worked with and who had kind of, you know, depended on me or depended on working with me. I just said, screw it, let's go. And, you know, after time, you know, there's definitely like ups and downs through that, no doubt about it. But facing it head on, I mean, it really it let me know that I can accomplish this, right? Because I was finding some success. It let me not only know that I can accomplish this, but there's nothing to be scared of. Like, it's okay. Everything is going to be okay, you know? And like, when you take that approach, somehow the world knows. The world works itself out for you. things just start to happen. You know, like I got a really great scholarship right when my GI Bill ran out. You know, the house that we ultimately bought and moved into became available, you know, right as I was like starting school, and it was like a really good price. Like, I don't know. I found like basically whenever it comes to fear, like it's certainly like a primal instinct to go away from it and to not get hurt. But a lot of times it's not reality on what the potential scenarios and things that can happen are. Like, we always imagine the absolute worst case scenario, when indeed that is not even the case at all. So those are just a couple of the things that I've had issues with, and you know, ultimately, like, these were obstacles and fears that I had that ultimately they're unbased. And if anything, like, facing these fears head on, without a doubt, has made me a better person, a stronger, more resilient, and more worldly person, I would like to say. Like, as far as Casey goes, as far as I go, I am much the better human being for them, and I'm actually very grateful for these obstacles or these fears, especially once they get in the way of things that I want to accomplish. Just face them head on. Let's go. So anyhow, I think that about wraps it up. I'm gonna get going, kiddo. Hope you have a great day. I love you very much. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.